welcome again to another episode of Strictly Healthy Show. And of course, this is the show that talks about all things to do with our health and how it affects us, and it's emotional, mental, physical, financial as well. We look at business health because stress levels and so on have an impact on our health. And we know with all the various things going on, the economic situation, that can certainly have an impact on us. And anyway, today we will be talking to an oxygen advantage instructor. Who knew there was such a thing? And her name is Tracey Howes. And she's going to share with us a bit about how breath work and breathing affects us and affects our stress levels and how it impacts on our general well-being. So I want to welcome you, Tracey, in today. Thank you for joining us. That's kind of you. So you are an oxygen advantage instructor and a free diver. So I want to break those two down because I take it they're two different things, but they are related. So we'll start with the oxygen advantage instructor. But before we sort of get into that, find out a little bit about yourself, where you're located, how you got started, why you got started doing what you're doing, if you don't mind sharing that with us today.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So I'm originally from South Africa, and I live now on the south coast of England, right next to the beach, which is my happy place. And
Fantastic.
so essentially free diving is holding your breath underwater without any breathing apparatus. And you can do the training like you would with scuba to hold your breath using various breath control techniques, relaxation, and you can do it for sport, including spearfishing, or you can compete in terms of depth and distance. So that's the sporting side of things.
Right.
The functional breath work, I'm certified through the Oxygen Advantage, as you know, and that is all about establishing healthy breathing patterns during the day, while we sleep, and when we exercise. So I will essentially work with individuals to retrain the respiratory muscles to perform efficiently so that we can improve their health and fitness.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So we've established a little bit about what that is, but I'm curious as to what got you involved in this in the first place.
Well, with regards to the free diving, I had done scuba diving before, but I always felt quite encumbered with all the equipment, but loved being underwater. So with free diving, it just for me was a way of learning how to use the body and relax the mind and not having all of that extra equipment and swimming more freely underwater. And I've always enjoyed being in water. So for me, it was such a wonderful opportunity to learn how to actually do this safely. In terms of the breath work, I was introduced to it through meditation in the first instance about 5 years ago.
Yes.
I was looking for a natural solution to support my health at the time. And nasal breathing was part of this meditation technique. And that opened the door for me to start exploring, researching, and learning more about the impact it had on my body and mind. And eventually, I discovered the Oxygen Advantage through my free diving, which is all about breath work for performance in sport. But there's so many other things you can learn about in terms of our health and wellness. So having learned that, having helped myself in terms of my own health, it really made a big impact, and I wanted to be able to teach others.
Right, good. Well, it sounds very intriguing, very interesting for me. I'm just curious as well too how long it takes to sort of learn, or how long is the course to learn how to become an Oxygen Advantage instructor? Just out of curiosity.
It's an ongoing learning process. You can do various different courses. Mine was about 3 months, for example, but you just have got to commit to something that is going to be learning for life. So I do weekly training, I learn, I read, I research, and of course I learn from my clients. And we
Sure.
are supported with amazing scientific research and, of course, your personal experience and how you can apply what you've learned for your own health and training.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very, very interesting because just share with us, what are some of the effects of learning to breathe properly, adequately, correctly? What
Well,
sort of effects do you get from it?
I think the first way to answer that question is to think about how we don't breathe very well. So
Say again,
dysfunction,
sorry.
if we don't breathe in the right way, how that affects the body, because that's really the first way to notice whether you're doing it right or not. Because obviously we all breathe, obviously.
Yes,
But if
sure.
you are typically breathing from the upper chest or mouth breathing all the time, that is considered dysfunctional breathing because that's going to put a lot of pressure and impact on the upper airways, particularly when you sleep. That's going to
Mhm.
exacerbate snoring, sleep apnea potentially, insomnia. By shifting to nasal breathing and learning how to activate the diaphragm so you can take deep, full breaths from the base of the lungs, can literally change the biochemistry of the blood, impacts the biomechanics of the body, so how your body moves when you breathe, and that impacts your spinal stabilization, your posture, your movement. The diaphragm, which is our main breathing muscle, is that big sheet of muscle that separates the heart and lungs from the stomach and the intestines. And it's actually connected to our hip flexors. So when you move well, you will breathe well. But if you don't breathe well, that's going to impact on your movement. And of course, that's all connected through our nervous system. And the impact generally for people when they are not breathing correctly are things like breathlessness, tension in the upper body because you're breathing from the top of the lungs, not taking a deeper breath, poor circulation in the hands and feet. But for most people, the first improvement they see when they change their breathing is improved sleep quality. And I think we could all get better sleep, really.
Yeah, indeed. I know you said about nasal breathing, and at night, for some reason, I do tend to breathe through my mouth
Mm.
sometimes, only because one of my passages seems to get blocked, which drives me insane. You know, is there anything that we can do to improve nasal breathing and or reduce
Mm-hmm.
maybe the breathing through your mouth? Is there any sort of techniques or apparatus that we can use to help
Well,
us?
I can give you a very quick example of a decongestion exercise, which honestly makes such a difference. Um, when we do any breathing practice or breath hold through the oxygen advantage, we hold our breath on a passive exhale. So we're not taking in a breath and holding our breath for ages. We inhale through the nose, we exhale, hold your breath, and if you nod your head up and down on breath hold like this, you can
Yes.
actually decongest the nose. So as soon as you can't hold your breath anymore, you inhale through the nose. And what actually happens is we have a molecule in our sinus cavity called nitric oxide. It's only activated through the nose, and you can increase production when you hold your breath. And that acts as a vasodilator, so it opens up the blood vessels, and that can really help to decongest. Unless you have any serious injuries or deviated septum, that's a good little technique to start with.
Okay, yes. One thing that I've been doing is two little silicone tips, and I tend to tend to shove them up my nose. It's something you can buy, like from the boot store or any of those types of pharmacies type of thing. I don't know if you heard of them before, if you use them at all,
Are
but
they vasodilators, so it clips into the nostril?
they tend to, you stick them in and they open up the nasal passage a little bit. But I
Not
don't know if
the I wouldn't. The tape on the nose doesn't really do enough work to make a difference. It does perhaps open a
no.
little bit. Are you talking about the outside?
Sorry, was it tape? No, I didn't mean the tape. No, it's like I wish I had the sample to show you, but it's silicone, little silicone tubes that I shove up the nose.
I've never seen
And
that.
that you've not seen that before. I found it at one of the pharmacies or somewhere, and
No.
that helps to because only one nasal passage will sort of not deflate. That's not the right word, but it will collapse. I guess that's a better word. Not sure why, but anyway, I guess what you're saying is learning these techniques will help improve that. Really, the breathing through your nose.
But it's so much more than that. There's a series of techniques where you relearn the style of breathing. And the more you do them, you create good habits in terms of your breathing. So when I work with individuals, it's usually over a period of weeks so we can track their progress. And you want to be able to integrate this into your daily routines, that you're not thinking about nasal breathing, you just automatically should be doing it.
Yes.
But as you say, it's challenging for some people if they have a lot of congestion. So, there's a lot of natural options of where you can rinse the nasal cavity. But essentially, the bottom line is training the breathing muscles to work efficiently. And then something like mouth tape can be very, very useful for sleep.
Yes, actually, that's such a good suggestion. I did try that as well because I do have a problem with breathing, sometimes trying to breathe through my mouth, and I have sleep apnea as well, so that can be a problem. But I tried that mouth tape, and that seems to work quite well. So thanks for that suggestion.
Yeah,
that's really good.
I'm really pleased.
So see, some of your techniques already working, already applying, already working. That's fantastic. But tell me, how many breathing techniques are there?
Gosh, that's like asking how many yoga techniques there are. There's loads of different ways of breathing. There's what we're saying is there's essentially what you want to do is get the basics right first. So if you start moving away from upper chest and mouth and you move to nasal and diaphragmatic, that's going to make a big difference in how the body performs. Because when the breathing muscles work efficiently, particularly if you're exerting yourself in any kind of sporting activity, you're going to improve your heart rate and take the pressure off the cardiac muscle, which is going to be hugely beneficial for any kind of performance training. But for example, in my 6-week program, I focus on 15 specific techniques, and that's what I do. Yeah, and that's what I have seen have had the most benefit over a period of time with my clients. But there are so many different ones out there. What I would say to people hearing about breathwork for the first time is get the basics right first, and then you can add levels of challenge where you do more, for example, longer breath holds, or techniques called hormetic stress breathing, where you add positive over breathing to balance and shift the nervous system. I'm very happy to go into more detail on that if anyone wants to know more.
Oh, yes. I would like to know more, especially about, I think some of the benefits you've told me before was that it helps with hormonal fluctuations, better sleep, as you mentioned earlier, stopping snoring. And another thing is reducing anxiety and stress. Maybe you can go into that a little bit, because I know you're keen to really help people, possibly especially women, with those types of issues. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Of course. So with regards to hormonal change, women especially, we are going to experience this during our menstrual cycle, our pregnancy, as well as menopause. And progesterone, we now know, has a protective effect on the upper airway muscles, so the throat muscles. And as the progesterone fluctuates, this is going to affect the strength of those muscles. And that's often what happens when women start going through menopause, is they experience a change in breathing, which they may not even recognize. It may be subconscious. Their sleep is affected, or they start to feel anxious, and perhaps they'd never felt anxiety like that before, or had any kind of sleep issue in the past. And the women that I've worked with, where we work on using these different techniques, they become part of their day-to-day routine. You know, we're not saying half an hour of exercises every day. You know, this could be a few minutes every day. And finding ways to make it part of your routine. So it's very personal to the individual. And over time, the sleep pattern starts to improve, because what we're trying to do is establish balance in the body. And when we overbreathe or breathe too quickly, the body shifts from a state of calm into a state of, or action stations. You know, we're moving into fight or flight. And if you're trying to go to sleep at night, you don't want your body to be in that constant state of alertness. So bringing the body back down and balancing the nervous system, slowing down the breathing, particularly exhale, is a technique that can help you move then into your sleep cycle. And once the body has that opportunity to rest and move into the restorative phase, that's going to improve your energy levels, because you're going to feel more rested when you wake up the next day. But it's very important to make sure that the mouth is closed at night, because that mouth breathing is going to cause the problems that we've spoken about.
All right. Well, that's really good to know. So you would recommend doing these breathing exercises prior to going to bed, or while you're just about ready to go to sleep? Would you recommend that?
Absolutely. You know, you don't have to do loads of different, when we say exercises, it's not, you know, like running in the gym. This is just learning how to, and this is where self-awareness comes into play, you know, understanding how it feels in your body, you know, how congestion feels for you, how tension feels for you. And that's the feedback I get a lot, is that people go, oh, I didn't realize that I breathed that way. And now I really recognize that. And when I start breathing too quickly or opening my mouth, I have the awareness to shift that. And sleep is, you know, it's the glue that holds everything together, because a calm mind, sleep, you know, and a calm, rested heart rate all work hand in hand. So, and the breathing is the ingredient that supports all of that.
That helps, yeah, indeed. Very good. So tell me a bit about how this breathing helps the blood chemistry. How can you expand on that a little bit?
So with breath hold, or when you get anyone to hold their breath, the immediate thought is, if you've never done it before, that you're running out of oxygen. And actually, it's the other way around. It is carbon dioxide in the blood is our natural chemical trigger to breathe, to keep us alive. So if you had to hold your breath for a few seconds, and then you felt that urge that you had to breathe, that feeling like, I need to breathe now, that's actually carbon dioxide rising in the blood. And that's a physical reminder. And your diaphragm will either start to tremble a little bit, or you might feel tightness in your throat or tightness in the upper chest. And that is a reminder to get you to breathe, to keep you alive. The other interesting thing that happens when you do these short breath holds, when the carbon dioxide increases in the blood, the pH balance changes and the hemoglobin proteins release more oxygen into the blood. So actually, these short breath holds can oxygenate your tissues, your brain, your organs. So it's actually a good thing. And I think people are always surprised by that, because they think, you know, there's a fear attached sometimes with breath holds. And with these gentle exercises, the short breath holds, you don't want to trigger a panic attack. It's very important not to hold your breath for too long, because that could happen if you are that way inclined. So it's very important to know your limits. But it is incredible what the body is capable of. And once my clients understand a little bit of the science, the physiology, and they start to recognize how their body feels with breath hold, with slowing down the exhale before they go to sleep, for example, the body starts to perform optimally. So you don't think through all of these technical things. You just go, oh, I'm feeling rested today. I'm feeling energized. My focus has improved. I'm less reactive to stress, which is the key really for all of us, is how to manage that nervous system so we don't get stuck in fight or flight or rest and digest. We need to be able to move comfortably between those two arms of the nervous system to have a healthy life.
Yes. Well, you're right. I didn't appreciate that holding your breath is something that actually is part of the whole functioning and is actually helpful. So, yeah, I think that's interesting and fascinating, really. So I wanted to ask as well, how does the proper breathing affects our muscle function?
So in terms of exercising, if you are, let's say you are training for a marathon, but you are running with your mouth open the whole time, what ends up happening is you take in a lot of unfiltered bacteria-filled air, which is going to affect the upper airways. And oftentimes people will, once they've finished their run, they'll start wheezing and coughing. And that's because this has activated exercise-induced asthma, where the body, because it's taking in all this unfiltered air, it's not performing efficiently, the breathing muscles are not activated properly, and the body rejects it. So by relearning how to breathe through the nose, particularly when you are performing any kind of physical activity, is really important because that's going to provide more oxygen to the working muscles. And as I mentioned before, if the diaphragm flexibility is improved, it's working efficiently, it's going to take the pressure off the cardiac muscle. And that's really, really important, especially in terms of high performance sport. The only caveat I would say is that specifically for pro athletes, people that are doing high intensity sport, they will use mouth breathing and nasal breathing for short periods of time during their training. The rest of the day, nasal breathing.
Ah, very good. Okay, so I get the whole sort of theory thing of it. Can we do a bit of a practice session, you think? Just an example of some breathing techniques or a breathing technique.
Yeah, well, I'll do one with you, which is called a breathing recovery exercise. And this is a really great one. It's useful before sleep, so it helps to really bring the heart rate down.
Yeah.
And you can also use it after you've exercised to balance the nervous system. So once you've performed, you need to bring the body back into balance, and this is going to help you do that.
Okay, good.
I like to call this exercise the 5-10, because what we're going to do is we're going to, with our mouth gently closed, is we're going to breathe in through the nose, gently exhale, and we're going to hold our breath for 5 seconds, and then we're going to breathe normally through the nose for 10, and you repeat that. So it's inhale, exhale, hold for 5, breathe normally for 10. And you can do this up to 15 minutes or more if you need to, but 2 minutes of this exercise can make a profound difference.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to try this tonight now and see if that works, and I'll report back to you. I'll be your guinea pig and try it to see if it works. So, yeah, tell me more about the types of clients then that could use this type of service that you're offering.
Well, I will work with individuals that perhaps are recovering from COVID or even long COVID, and they're looking for a natural solution to sit next to their medical support, because I have to be very upfront. I'm not a medical practitioner. I am supporting people using these holistic breathwork methods that are backed up by science. So I will sometimes be referred from a practitioner to support their client. I've worked with individuals with asthma who have been very reliant on their asthma pump. You possibly have 2 or 3 different pumps, depending on the level of severity. And by working with me over a period of weeks, we are able to almost wean them off the asthma pump. So they will always have the asthma pump to support them, but it won't be as needed because their breathing will be more efficient. I've worked with ultramarathon runners, individuals who have climbed Mount Everest, swum the English Channel, where they are super focused on improving their breathing techniques because this is part of their physical wellness package before they go into these extreme environments.
Sure.
But the vast majority of my clients, I would say, are a mix of men and women who want to improve their sleep, reduce snoring and sleep apnea and insomnia, and also want to find a natural way to control panic and anxiety and stress. And this can be absolutely applied in the workplace as well. So these techniques can be done at your desk, at home, sitting up or lying on a yoga mat. It doesn't, we can all breathe better, in my opinion. And I use myself as an example because I've tried so many techniques over the years and learned about what works for me. So my advice is consider looking into functional breathwork through the Oxford Advantage, but also look at other breathwork techniques and see what you find interesting because you can actually combine techniques. It doesn't have to be, we're not saying one way is the only way. They all work, but they have different outcomes. So I like to start at the beginning. So start with the functional and then you can add everything on top of that.
Can add from there. Great. Yeah. So I'm sure there'll be people wanting to get a hold of you. I'm going to just put your, it's just running as a ticker tape at the bottom there. That's your link tree contact details. So if anybody is interested to get a hold of you and they need your type of service, which I'm sure many will now once they've realized what is involved and the benefits, etc., people will definitely want to get a hold of you to find out more. So that's good. Any other things that you want to share in terms of, what you offer and how you can help?
Well, for me, it's all about education. It's how I learned and experienced it. So I do a lot of podcasts, blogs, and blogs where I share my knowledge because I think sometimes people need to read a bit more about it, understand what it is, and perhaps practice some of the techniques on their own. And they might then come to me and go, well, we'd like the support. I like to work with groups. So I often will teach online in small groups because everyone learns from everyone else. And I learn from my students. So that's a really great way to share knowledge. I teach one-to-one if people want a more bespoke program. And I also do face-to-face retreats and workshops in beautiful places in nature near me in the south coast of England, where I get people out and about, and we really focus on deep integration and learning about yourself and figuring out what works for you. And I think that's the biggest compliment I could get from something like that is that people feel empowered. They know how to look after themselves, and that is a gift I think that we can all give ourselves.
And I'm curious about these retreats as well. I guess perhaps you probably ban devices and all that sort of thing and do more of what they call the forest bathing and all the rest of it. How do they...
Not completely.
Not completely, okay.
No, because we do have to time some of the breath holds. So I'll say to everyone, you're allowed to use your mobile phone once. But the rest of the time, it is very much people will arrive with their mats and their notepads, and there'll be discussions around the body and science and understanding your physiology. And then you'll practice the exercises in a group. And then we'll have a Q&A so people can ask questions and feedback about how that felt for them. And this is where I think group learning is so beneficial because you might think that you have a problem, but actually you find that there's a few people who are struggling as well. or celebrating. You know, you're thinking, wow, I'm feeling amazing. And it's so nice to be able to share that with other people. So I'm really passionate about that because I feel like you need that interaction, whether it's on a Zoom call and you've got people online with you or face to face, but certainly being in a beautiful place can make and adds a lot more to the experience.
Yes, yes. Well, this has been fascinating, very interesting for me anyway, and I'm sure other people listening to this would think it's very interesting and helpful because we see the benefits that you're offering. So I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, so good. We know how to contact you. I'll just put that up again. That's the link tree details there if anybody's interested and wants to get a hold of Tracey. And she is an Oxygen Advantage instructor. So thanks very much, Tracey, for joining me today on the Strictly Healthy Show. And yeah, hopefully we will have a follow-up or get in touch again and see what else is on offer in terms of what you do.
Thank you, Linda. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Great. Lovely having you. So that was Tracey. Tracey Howes. She's an Oxygen Advantage instructor and freediver. And so she was sharing some amazing benefits about how the correct breath, accurate breathing, helps with various things like hormonal fluctuations, better sleeps. It can help you with stopping snoring, etc. Reduce anxiety and stress, which I think is fantastic and amazing, and things that we definitely will need in our lives. So appreciate that. So thank you for joining me on the Strictly Healthy Show, and hopefully you'll join me again for another episode of Strictly Healthy.